Greetings, Wambui Bahati here. Wambui made it. Today, I just wanted to take time to briefly demonstrate how to do the loom knitting purl stitch. Now, you can loom knit until the cows come home. You can loom knit hundreds and thousands of beautiful items without ever knowing how to do the loom knitting purl stitch. And it's okay because, for instance, here's a hat that I think is very colorful and exciting, and this was done with just the basic loom knitting stitch. We have a brim, we changed colors, and it's just depending on the yarn you use, you can make it pretty exciting, pretty colorful, and just a pretty wonderful hat. This is all one stitch, the basic loom knitting stitch. This hat right here is a hat that was made using not only the basic loom knitting stitch, but it also incorporates the loom knitting purl stitch. And what that does is adds dimension to your hat, depending on how you use it. Or that's what I liked about it, was that I could do some rows as basic knitting and then some rows as purl. And what I found was that it added just new depths and dimensions to my hat. And where you can see the purl, the basic stitches right here, and then where you see the hat kind of standing out a little bit, that's the purl stitch. And I went back and forth on this hat. And so I'm going to demonstrate how to do the purl stitch. And you can decide whether or not it's something that you want to use and incorporate into the items that you are making. So let me do that. Okay, when we're ready to purl, we are not going to wrap any rows like that. Purl does not involve wrapping. Purl, I like to say, involves laying. And what we're going to do is when we're ready to start with the purling, in fact, you know how when you do your basic stitch and you want to push your stitches down so that you can make room for the next row that you're going to wrap. Well, in purling, we almost want to do the opposite. We want to kind of push the loops up, because what we're going to do for purling is we're going to lay the yarn down one peg at a time. We're going to take our tool, bring the yarn up that we laid on that peg. We're going to bring it up and make a loop. So now we've got a loop on this peg. What we're going to do is remove everything from that peg, but we want to hang on to that loop, hang on to the loop, because we're going to replace everything with that loop. And we're going to go to the next one. We're going to lay the yarn. So here we are. We're going to lay the yarn on this peg. Hold it with your thumb. We're going to take our tool, go underneath there, get that yarn that we laid on that peg, pull it up, and we got a loop. So we have a loop on that peg. We're going to hold on to that loop, remove everything that was on that peg, and replace it with that loop. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to lay the yarn onto the next across the next peg. We're going to lay the yarn across the next peg. We're going to hold it kind of in place with our thumb. We're going to take our tool and we're going to pull that yarn up into a loop. Okay, we're going to remove everything from that peg, but we're going to replace it with that loop. One more. Okay, we're going to take that next peg. When we get to the next peg, we're going to lay the yarn across the peg. We're going to take our tool. We're going to pull that yarn up and make a loop. Then we're going to remove everything from that peg and replace it with the new loop. One more time. Okay, we're going to take this yarn, lay it across the peg, take the tool, we have a loop, We're going to remove everything from that peg and replace it with the new loop. And now you are purling. And so when you're making an item, you can purl one row and go back and forth, purl and knit, or you can do a couple rows. But that's basically the purling technique in loom knitting. You lay it across the peg, take your tool, pull it up. All right. Now you got a loop here. You're going to move everything from that peg and replace it with the new loop. Okay, you're purling.